Number 10. The passenger pigeon. There was a time when the skies over North America were darkened from wing to wing by the passenger pigeon, a species of bird, which completely blanketed the sky. This was not a rare sight. This bird was once the most abundant bird species in the world. The colonists spoke of flocks so dense they turned day into twilight, and eyewitnesses claimed that the sound of their flapping wings echoed for miles. According to some estimates, a single flock could number in the billions. For hundreds of years, it seemed as though nothing could harm them. Then came the 19th century, and everything quickly spiraled out of control. As American cities grew, commercial hunters turned this massive population into a vulnerability. A bird flying within a 1-mile wide wall is an easy target to be caught by the thousands in nets, shot, or driven from the trees with smoke. The spread of railroads and telegraph lines further accelerated this slaughter. It allowed hunters to track nesting colonies and pounce on them instantly. Entire breeding grounds were completely depopulated within a few days. This species had a major flaw: it required very large groups to function socially and reproduce. As the flocks thinned out, the pigeons could no longer find mates or raise their young as they once did. By the early 20th century, the skies had fallen silent. The last of its kind, a captive bird named Martha, sadly died at the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914. This bird species, which once numbered in the billions, became extinct in less than a century, an event that remains one of history's most devastating lessons on how quickly abundance can turn to nothingness. Number 9. The Great Auk. On the icy shores of the North Atlantic lived a flightless seabird that looked like a penguin from a distance. They had the same black and white color, a heavily hooked beak, and wings useless for flight. But these wings made it an exceptional underwater predator. For thousands of years, flocks have nested on remote rocky islands stretching from Canada to northern Europe. Its downfall was incredibly simple. They couldn't fly, and because of that, they couldn't escape from hunters. Sailors could simply walk right up to them and catch them with ease. The crew realized how useful the bird was. Its feathers were used for bedding, its meat for food, and its fat for producing oil, and entire groups were wiped out wholesale. By the early 1800s, the survivors could only remain in a few isolated habitats, and the population had already begun to disappear. That's when collectors made things even worse. As the species became increasingly rare, museums and private collectors began paying large amounts of money for specimens. This only accelerated the hunting of the very last remaining individuals. In 1844, the last documented breeding pair was hunted on a small island off the coast of Iceland, and with that, this magnificent species became completely extinct. Interestingly, this bird is also the reason why we call today's penguins, penguins. Sailors gave the birds of the southern hemisphere this name because they resembled this bird. Sadly, the original penguin did not live long enough to see its name outlive it. Number 8. Steller's sea cow. The frigid waters of the northern Pacific once held one of the largest marine mammals humans ever documented, Steller's sea cow. Naturalist Georg Wilhelm Steller first recorded the species in 1741 near the Commander Islands, and what he found was staggering: animals stretching past 9 meters and weighing several tons. Despite the size, these were gentle, slow-moving grazers that spent their days feeding on kelp in shallow coastal water. Steller noted they barely reacted when people approached, which made them almost absurdly easy to kill. Passing ships quickly began harvesting them for meat and blubber, since a single animal could feed a crew for a long stretch of ocean. But the sea cow's biology worked against it. An extremely slow reproductive rate meant the population had no way to bounce back from sustained hunting. Barely 3 decades after Europeans first described the species, it was gone. The last confirmed sea cow was killed in 1768, making its disappearance one of the fastest extinctions of a large animal ever recorded. Number 7. The Thylacine. Few extinct animals are as visually strange as the thylacine, better known as the Tasmanian tiger. Despite the nickname, it was neither tiger nor cat. It was a marsupial, raising its young in a pouch, yet its body was built almost exactly like a dog's, with a row of dark stripes across its back giving it a tiger-like look. For thousands of years it roamed mainland Australia and the island of Tasmania. Everything changed once European settlers arrived in the 1800s and decided the animal was killing their sheep. Whether that reputation was fully deserved is still debated today, but the accusation alone was enough to trigger a government bounty program, cash paid per animal killed. Trapping, poisoning, and shooting followed, and the population crumbled fast, worsened further by habitat destruction and disease. Their appearance ceased in the early 1900s. The last known member sadly died in captivity at Hobart Zoo in 1936 after being accidentally released outside its cage on a freezing night. Old film footage of the last Thylacine wandering around in its cage still exists. Even today it feels almost eerie to watch, as if it's footage of something that should never have disappeared. Number 6. The Dodo. The dodo bird may be the most well-known extinct animal in the world, but its true story is more complex than the popular legend. He lived only on the island of Mauritius, where the absence of predators allowed him to evolve without a real threat, and eventually completely lost the ability to fly, turning into a large ground-dwelling bird that fed on fruits and seeds with sturdy legs, a large curved beak and a round body. The dodo bird may be the most well-known extinct animal in the world, but its true story is more complex than the popular legend. He lived only on the island of Mauritius, where the absence of predators allowed him to evolve without a real threat, and eventually completely lost the ability to fly, turning into a large ground-dwelling bird that fed on fruits and seeds with sturdy legs, a large curved beak and a round body. Within a few decades, the population declined, and by the end of the 1600s, the dodo had become extinct. Oddly enough, almost no complete skeletons survive. Most of what we know comes from shattered bones, old sketches and second-hand sailors' accounts. This bird species became extinct so rapidly that even scientists did not have the opportunity to study it while it was still alive. Number 5. The Irish elk. During the last ice age, huge deer, like animals, roamed parts of Europe and Asia, and none of them were as remarkable as the Irish deer. In fact, this name is a little misleading, because this species was not restricted only to Ireland. They lived in a large part of northern Eurasia, but so many well-preserved skeletons were found in peat bogs in Ireland that this name became permanent. The animal itself was very large in size. The shoulder height of bulls was about 2 meters, but its main remarkable feature was its horns, which reached a height of up to 3.5 meters, which was the largest set of ant decals among all known deer species. For a long time, scientists attributed the extinction of this species entirely to climate changes at the end of the Ice Age, leading them to think that the spreading forests reduced the open areas where such a large animal could feed. More recent findings show that early humans played an important role in hunting. Deer were a very large animal, bred slowly, and were a valuable source of meat, skin and bones. Archaeological findings also confirm that they were constantly hunted. The probable fact is that both conditions combined to perpetuate the species beyond the point of recovery, and the last populations decayed about 7,700 years ago. When I stand in front of a painting of those horns in a museum today, it still feels hard to believe that such an animal shared the same forests as our ancestors in the past. Number 4. The moa. The ancient, vast forests of New Zealand once hosted some of the largest birds that ever existed, the moa. Unlike almost all other large birds, the moa did not have wings, even vestigial ones. Its entire body had evolved to be suitable for living entirely on the surface of the forest. When fully grown, the necks of some species exceeded 3.5 meters in length, making them taller than the average adult human. Before humans arrived, the moa bird had no predators to hunt it, and it roamed freely in forests and meadows, feeding on leaves and fruits. This changed when Polynesian settlers, the ancestors of the Maori, arrived in New Zealand towards the end of the 1200s. For these newcomers, the moa was a walking food source. A bird of this type could provide an enormous amount of meat, bones used for tool making, and feathers used as ornaments. The species was an extremely easy prey, as humans had never developed the instinct to be afraid of predators, and hunting groups could hunt a large number of animals at one time. The cooking areas created are filled with moa bones, which is evidence of how regularly the birds were hunted. Combined with the naturally slow reproductive rate, the population could not keep up with the hunting speed, and within 2 to 3 centuries after the arrival of humans, the moa species completely disappeared. Its extinction also dragged another species with it. The host eagle, the largest known eagle, hunted Moab as its main food source, and unfortunately this species became extinct shortly after the food source disappeared. Number 3. The Aurochs. Long before domesticated cattle existed, their direct wild ancestor, the Aurochs, roamed Europe, Asia, and North Africa. It looked like a much bigger and scarier version of a modern cow. The bulls were about 2 meters tall at shoulder height, had a strong body and carried long horns that curved forward. Early humans both feared and valued this animal. His paintings, drawn in caves, including the famous Lascaux works, show that wild oxen were hunted by hunters tens of thousands of years ago, and the return of a successful hunt was great, an abundance of meat, skin and bones. However, the aurochs was no easy target. It was aggressive and strong enough to defend itself. As the human population increased and forests gave way to agricultural lands, the range of wild oxen gradually shrank while hunting pressure increased. By the time the Middle Ages arrived, it had already disappeared across its former territories and survived in only a few protected royal game reserves in Eastern Europe. The last known wild ox died in the Jaktaro forest in Poland in 1627, and with it the wild ancestor of every cow alive today also completely disappeared. Number 2. The elephant bird. Madagascar was once home to a bird so gigantic that the accounts of the first seers about this bird seemed exaggerated, the elephant bird. The name has nothing to do directly with elephants. It probably comes from local legends about huge eggs, which the first seers assumed belonged to an incredibly large creature. It turned out that these legends were based on facts. The elephant bird is among the largest birds that have ever lived. Some species can reach approximately 3 meters in length and weigh up to 500 kilograms. It is a flightless bird species with a large body and strong legs. But its real fame stems from its egg. A single elephant bird egg decked out more than 150 times the volume of a chicken egg, making it the largest bird egg among all known animals. For centuries, this species existed in Madagascar with almost no natural predators, until humans arrived on the island 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence shows that humans both hunted adult birds and collected their enormous eggs, which could feed multiple people with a single egg. Moreover, the expansion of agricultural lands has also reduced living space. Due to the very slow reproduction rate of the birds, the population gradually declined and the species became completely extinct in the 1600s. Fragments of shattered eggshells are still found buried in the sands of Madagascar even today, a strange and tangible reminder of how gigantic these birds were. Number 1. The quagga. Of all the animals that humans have decapitated by hunting, there are few living species that look as strange as the quagga, a relative of the zebra that once roamed parts of South Africa and almost looks like a combination of two different animals. His head and neck bore the classic black and white zebra stripes, but as he moved up his body, these stripes gradually faded, and the hindquarters turned a flat, unmarked brown, like horse hide. For a long time, it was thought to be a distinct species on its own. However, scientists now know that it is actually a subspecies of the plain zebra. Nevertheless, its striking half-and-half appearance has made it one of the most well-known animals in South Africa. Unfortunately, this difference did not save him. As European settlers established farms and livestock operations throughout the region in the 1800s, the swamp was seen simply as competition for pasture, and locals aggressively targeted it, for meat, for hides, or just to clear pastures. Their ability to live in visible herds on open meadows made it easier for other predatory animals to hunt in large groups. The wild population declined rapidly, and by the end of the 1800s the swamp had essentially disappeared from the wild. The last individual died in captivity at the Royal Zoological Gardens of Artis in Amsterdam in 1883. What makes the quagga's story particularly disturbing is that its extinction was not immediately noticed. The record-keeping and documentation system at that time was so inadequate that people realized that the species had really disappeared only after a very long time. Even today, it stands as a reminder that a species can become extinct without us fully understanding what it was. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. More videos like this are on the way, so hit subscribe if you don't want to miss them.